Hi, all of you awesome scuba divers out there. Welcome to Scuba Dive Magazine, your favourite place for the latest scuba diving news and gear reviews. Scuba diving, just like many other recreational activities, has developed a bit of a language of its own. A few weeks back I broke down some of the acronyms that we use as divers, but there can also be specific terms that if you're new to scuba diving you might not understand. Like if someone talks about their overweighted twins, or they feel overweighted when they're wearing their twins, if you're unused to the scuba diving nomenclature, that may sound a little bit weird, but I've tried to list as many scuba diving terms that I can think of. There are obviously going to be plenty of others that I'm sure you can list down in the comments below that I've forgotten. But here are most of the common scuba diving terms that you might hear on the dive boat or read in the forums. We attach our regulators to our diving cylinders in one of two ways, either with a A-clamp, which is sometimes called a yoke, which wraps around the valve itself and then screws in place, or a DIN fitting that screws into the valve itself. But yeah, A-clamp is just a type of fitting for a first stage. Apnea is technically not a scuba diving term because you don't use scuba whilst you're apnea-ing, but apnea or free diving comes from the Greek apnoia, or not breathing. So it's breath hold dives, where the diver takes in a breath on the surface, dives down and then swims back up for another breath. They don't use the breathing apparatus that we use for scuba diving, which is why it's technically not scuba diving, but if you ever hear apnea, they're talking about this. A backplate refers to this, and it's the mounting point for your BCD and cylinders. Most BCDs have a solid backplate, usually plastic in recreational BCDs and metal in more technical BCDs. The term itself isn't used that much in recreational diving, so if someone refers to a backplate, they're probably talking about a 3mm thick sheet of metal with a harness and a wing attached to it like this. A bailout is usually an independent cylinder with a regulator attached to it. In the unlikely event that whatever you are breathing from should fail, you carry a separate system that you can bail out to instead of needing your buddy to breathe from their octo. You have your own independent air source with you, ready to rock and roll should anything go wrong with the one that you are breathing from. We don't really call it the bends anymore, we call it decompression illness or DCI. But the bends is an old term for decompression illness, caused by ascending too quickly and dissolved gases in your body can form bubbles. The bent name comes from workers bending over to try and relieve the pain of their bubbles forming in their back and their joints. I think there was some origins, there was like a dance move back in the day where everyone was like bending over. It was called the bends, and the workers would do the same kind of thing. They found it alleviated their pain, and they just put the two together and just called it the bends. A bounce dive is where you descend and then head straight back up again. They're not particularly fun or that common, really. They can be a little bit dangerous as well. It's typically if someone has dropped something expensive and shiny, and you just need to grab it on the bottom, or if you're like on the surface, you're scanning for something, there's a blip on your screen and it takes a human to actually go down there and look at it to determine if it is something interesting or not. Just a quick, no, that's not interesting, back up to the surface, but they're not usually recommended. A buddy is another diver that you dive with. You don't necessarily need to be friends with this person because you can go diving with any other qualified diver, and they're basically a sentient bailout tank that can help you out with things in the water. If you're entangled in something, they can help free you. If you run out of gas for whatever reason, they have an alternate that you can breathe from. Yeah, it's just nice to have a buddy around. Buddy breathing is a procedure that we do in a quite specific emergency. It's where two divers share a single second stage and pass it backwards and forwards, taking a breath or two each. But we don't do this very much because one, dive gear is much more reliable now than it used to be, and two, most divers dive with more than one second stage to breathe from, so you don't need to share. It's only if you do pass that alternate for them to breathe from and that fails that you then have to buddy breathe, but it's pretty rare. One hard, fast rule of scuba diving is that any diver can call the dive at any time. And calling a dive is just ending or cancelling the dive for whatever reason. If you don't like the equipment or the conditions, you can end the dive before you even get wet. You just tell everyone else, I'm not going on this dive. Maybe not quite in that tone, but you get the idea. And in the water, anybody can call the dive. Just be sure to tell your buddy, you can make sure that they're looking. You say, I'm going up, and don't just disappear on them. Otherwise, they're going to be looking for you in the water. This is a fairly important distinction when diving in overhead environments. Any water where you can't ascend directly to the surface is inherently dangerous. But when you are qualified to dive in overhead environments, the very first section of cave where you can still see the entrance is determined a cavern dive. Beyond that, it becomes a cave dive. Before every single dive, we run through checks of our dive equipment to make sure that it's all working properly and that your buddy is familiar with how your dive equipment works, because it's all different brands and whatnot, and more importantly, where things are located. There are a few acronyms that we use to help remember each part of this buddy check, and you can even get checklist cards that you can just make sure that you're running through everything to make sure that everything is checked before you jump in the water and find out that something's not switched on. Deco is short for decompression, and we use it in a few different ways. If a dive is a deco dive, it means that you dive so deep or for so long that you require a deco stop. A deco stop, or a decompression stop, is where you hover at a certain depth to allow excess gas to escape from your body so that it doesn't form those bubbles, and you just stay there for a certain amount of time and then ascend. You don't come straight up to the surface. As scuba divers, you can understand that we define deep water as a little differently to most people. The depth at which a dive becomes deep kind of varies between training agency, but anything below 18 meters is generally considered deep. Some think it's a little bit deeper, but yeah, 18 meters is usually considered a deep dive. Downstream usually refers to how a scuba diving regulator is designed. Downstream regulators are designed to fail in the open position, which means that if something breaks in your regulator, it's more likely to break in the open position and give you too much gas to breathe from instead of not enough, unless you actually run out of gas, in which case, yes, it will just kind of stop. But you can usually feel it a long way off. It gets a little bit harder to breathe the closer you get to that zero. Some dive sites have a constant flow of water, but as efficient as fins are nowadays, and even if you never skip leg day, there's no point swimming against a current. You'll just end up in the same place that you're going to anyway, but more tired. A drift dive is where we plan an exit point, usually downstream to the entry point, and just let the water do all of the work. You just kind of have to maintain your buoyancy, and you can just watch the world go by. Or you can hook into the reef with a rift hook, and again, just kind of watch the world go by, but you're a bit of a flag simulator, and just knowing what it's like to be just caught in current. If you're diving in colder waters or for long periods, then the water will naturally sap the heat away from you. A dry suit is an airtight suit, usually, that keeps the water from reaching you. Usually, there's always an asterisk after that statement. But scuba dry suits have special valves, one on the chest and one on your shoulder, or sometimes somewhere on your sleeve usually, to add and remove air or gas throughout the dive to control your buoyancy. Because of the volume change as you descend, because of the pressure around you, you need to be able to add some gas and remove some gas as you're ascending. As you descend underwater, the water pressure around you increases. That's why you get that buoyancy change or the volume change inside that dry suit and other airspaces. There are a few airspaces in your body that are affected by this pressure. Most obviously is a small section between your throat and your ears, and you need to equalize the pressure as you descend, otherwise you can find some discomfort. When we talk about equalizing, it is usually to equalize that tube inside there. Water is much more effective at sapping your body heat away compared to air, so before long, even in warm water, you will get cold. Wetsuits and dry suits are used to help insulate us from the water that we're diving to keep warm. So if someone's talking about their exposure protection, they're talking about either their wetsuit, their hoods, their gloves, or their dry suit. The first stage is a part of your breathing regulator. More specifically, this metal part. The first stage does most of the hard work, reducing the incredible air pressure inside of the cylinder, trying to come out of the cylinder when you open that valve, and they reduce that pressure or regulate it to a more realistic breathing amount that then gets diffused into some of the hoses. So that's your first stage. To be able to see underwater, we need a mask over our eyes, but if you hold a piece of glass in front of your face, eventually moisture is going to condense on it on the inside so that you just can't see properly. It fogs up. Before the dive, there are various methods to help prevent fogging masks, and in the water, you can always just let a little bit of water into your mask and then let it wash the inside before you clear the water out. But yeah, if it's fogging, it means that their mask you literally can't see because the mist is forming inside or condensing on the inside of that lens. Back to your regulators being downstream. I mentioned it earlier, breathing regulators are designed to deliver gas if they think that you're inhaling, so they deliver gas quite readily. This gas movement can freeze the valves open, especially in colder waters or if you're purging it for long periods. And if it just does it by itself, then that's what we call a free flow. It's usually an exponential free flow because a small amount of gas draws more gas and then it opens the valve even more, and it just is exponential. It's loud, it wastes a lot of gas, but it's a side effect of having great regulators, and some regulators have features do help prevent free flows, so look for Venturi levers or switches, but yeah, a free flow is when your regulator just kind of goes nuts, unfortunately. A giant stride is a fundamental water entry method when you're standing on something solid like a pier or the deck of a boat over some deep water. You take one large step into the water, because if you only take a little step, then you're going to catch the bottom of your cylinder behind you on the edge that you're stepping off of, and the top of your cylinder will clonk the back of your head hard, and that's a bad way to start a dive. So a big giant stride is a good way to enter the water. None of this like little weedy steps. One interesting thing is that on a lot of dive boats, you'll often find one of the crew is standing beside the entry point, and they usually have their hand on the cylinder or something as people are about to make a giant stride entry. That's not really to help. I mean, it's kind of there to help you from falling over, but if they see that you're not making a big enough giant stride, they will push you to make sure that you don't clonk your head. That's kind of why they're stood there. Similar to a bailout, but you don't bring it with you throughout the entire dive, a hang tank is tied to a rope and then lowered to a specific depth off the side of like a dive boat for anybody who is low on gas at the end of the dive to be able to breathe from whilst they're decompressing. Should something happen during the dive and they don't have enough back gas or just gas in general with them, it's nice just to have an extra one that they can breathe from. It just takes a lot of the pressure off. A helicopter turn is a way for a diver to rotate on the spot only using their fins. Instead of flailing around using your hands and just stirring up the bottom, with enough practice you can just kind of flick your ankles and rotate on the spot for a proper helicopter turn. While I'm not a huge fan of these being used recreationally, a Hookah system is a surface supply system where a compressor and usually a cylinder is floating on the surface, and a long hose then leads down to a second stage that you then breathe from so that you can dive without all of the scuba equipment. For me personally, too many things can go wrong for my liking, but they are a tool for a job. They do have their place, but personally I try and recommend against them, especially for the unqualified, just because there's too many things that can go wrong. A jacket style BCD is where the bladder that holds the air inside runs down your back and inflates around your waist as well. They're typically preferred by entry-level divers because they hold you in place quite nicely, and you do get some storage pockets, but some divers don't like them because when they are fully inflated they can squeeze you a bit, so you can't get a full breath of air. But yeah, personally, I prefer wing style BCDs that I'll probably talk about a little bit later, but yeah, a jacket style BCD is just a BCD with the side bits that inflate as well. And a hybrid BCD is somewhere in between. It does have those lobes, but they're usually a little bit smaller, so less volume inside of that when it's fully inflated. But when you're in the water, when you have got some gas inside of it during the dive, it holds you more of a position of a wing style BCD, but it does still inflate a little bit around the sides. A Jon Line, named for John Hulbert, is a short line or rope or webbing to attach a diver temporarily to something like an anchor line, either to save energy, give multiple divers space on an otherwise overcrowded line, or save your hand from being jerked around if there's a lot of water movement on the surface. Use a Jon Line for that. A lift bag is a sturdy buoy that you can attach to an item underwater that you want to make more positively buoyant. If you find a lost item that's too large or heavy to lift just with your hands, you can attach a lift bag, or several of them if it's really heavy, slowly inflate them so that the item becomes neutrally buoyant, and then you can lift it up to the surface more safely. as divers have progressed, the need for large dive knives has kind of dwindled, and one of the most efficient cutting tools out there is a line cutter or a Z knife. If a diver becomes entangled in something like fishing line, or you need to cut them out of their equipment because you either can't figure it out or it's too snug, a line cutter is a non-pointy way to cut through obstacles very, very quickly and safely as well, without risking stabbing yourself or others. A liveaboard is a dive boat with sleeping quarters on board. Instead of diving from the shoreline or from a small boat, you can book a place on a week or so long dive trip where you stay on board the boat and it then ferries you between different dive sites for the entire week. You eat, sleep and dive from the boat, and you only really see dry land at the start and the end of the trip. We record everything that we can about a dive. Most divers record the basics, such as the maximum depth and the dive time, but others include more information such as what they saw on the dive, what exposure protection they wore, so that they can refer back to it to know what thickness wetsuit to pack for the next time they go there in that water temperature, how much lead to wear, stuff like that for when they go back next time. But it's just usually a relatively detailed record of your diving career. A manifold usually refers to this section of a cylinder valve. If you dive twin cylinders like this, then you can have independent twins where they're just two cylinders strapped together. They're independent twins. Or you can have manifolded twins where you can breathe from both cylinders at the same time and sometimes isolate them with this valve if you need to. But this little section in the center, that is called a manifold. Narked is slang for nitrogen narcosis. As we dive deeper and that water pressure around us increases, it effectively makes it as if we're breathing a higher concentration of nitrogen in the air than that what we're breathing on the surface. Nitrogen, as well as a lot of other gases, in high concentrations has a narcotic effect, and most divers feel a bit of a woozy feeling as if they've had a drink or so if they go down too deep. So if you feel a little bit weird, you're probably going to be narked. Air is composed of just under 80% nitrogen and around 21% oxygen. It is going to be about 20.9%, but it varies depending on humidity and location, all that kind of stuff. And then on top of that, you have a few percent of other trace gases like carbon dioxide, but that large amount, that 79% of nitrogen, is what's being absorbed into our body under pressure. So by adding pure oxygen to the air, we actually create nitrox, which means that we can stay down longer by sacrificing depth. Nitrox is just enriched air nitrox. You just have a little bit more oxygen, which reduces the amount of nitrogen, so you can stay down a little bit longer, but oxygen at depth becomes a little bit toxic, or actually becomes a lot bit toxic. So you can't go down as deep on nitrox, but you can go to the certain depths for longer amounts of time compared to air. You get on-gassing and off-gassing. Same concept to narcosis. Under pressure, your body is absorbing more of the gas that you're breathing into your tissues during the initial phase of the dive, where you're still absorbing gas, you're on-gassing, and then as you ascend and the pressure around you drops and the gases start to come out of your tissues and you then breathe them out naturally, then you're off-gassing. So it's usually the start of the dive, you're on-gassing, and towards the end of the dive, as you're ascending, you're off-gassing. This isn't an ad hominem attack. You look great, by the way. The human body and all of our exposure protection and our equipment, or most of our equipment, quite often floats, especially in salt water, and divers often need to wear bricks of lead to allow us to sink. How much lead you need is a rather complicated equation, and a lot of divers, especially new divers, bring too much lead with them, more than they need for the dive, because it can be embarrassing if you're just bobbing on the surface and you can't get down because you're not wearing enough lead. But if you're carrying too much lead because you want to make sure that you sink, we call that being overweighted. You don't want to be overweighted. There's lots of reasons not to, from increasing your air consumption to it just being heavy, and also it's going to make you sink, which can be quite dangerous. So yeah, if someone refers to you as being overweighted, don't take it overly personally. It just means that you probably have too much lead on your weight belt. A pony is a small horse that scuba divers ride to the water's edge with all of their equipment. No, a pony is actually just a slang term for a small cylinder that acts as a redundant air supply that a diver can either use to breathe from if there's something wrong with their main cylinder, or that you can set it up so that you use that to inflate your BCD or your Drysuit or like a lift bag or something, an independent cylinder, so you're not wasting breathing gas on buoyancy or lift bags or whatever. But yeah, a pony is just a small cylinder, usually something around a 3 or a 5 litre. If a diver is asking about your profile, they're asking about your depth over time during a dive. You can have a classic square or bucket profile where you descend to a single depth, you stay at that depth for a certain amount of time and then ascend. A sawtooth profile, you can imagine, is where you're zigzagging up and down, which isn't great. Sawtooth profiles are not good. There are lots of different descriptions for different dive profiles, but yeah, if someone's talking about your dive profile, they kind of want to know how your dive depth was over time. Purge is most commonly used on your regulator's second stage if someone's talking about a purge or you need to purge. Regs are designed to work underwater. I know, go figure. But if a regulator comes out of your mouth, it's going to fill up with water, and if you just pop it straight back in your mouth, then your first breath, if you just inhale from that, is going to be water. So all second stages will have a purge button, usually on the front, but sometimes it's on the side, that opens the valve and lets some of that air from your cylinder into the second stage to push all the water out of the valve at the bottom. So you put it back in, you purge it, and then you can breathe from it again. A rash vest or a rashie is a thin shirt that you wear either by itself or underneath your wetsuit. The material is nice and thin and it's made to protect you from harmful UV light on the surface. It can protect you from jellyfish stings as well if you're wearing it just by itself. And as the name suggests, rashies help to protect you from rashes that come from like rubbing wetsuits, because it's just that protective barrier between you and your wetsuit. It's handy to have at least one in your kit bag to either aid with donning and doffing your wetsuit, just because it slides on a little bit easier. If you don't have sunscreen, then you can put it on and it's going to protect you from the sunlight, and also it's going to protect you from marine bumps and scrapes and stings and stuff. And you also get full rash suits now, so you can just have a full body cover. The only things that are really exposed are going to be your hands and your face. Regs, your regulators are the equipment that lets us breathe underwater. They're your regs. They take the air pressure inside of a cylinder and then they regulate that down to a more manageable pressure. You will have like 200, sometimes 300 bar of pressure trying to get out of that cylinder. If you breathe from that, it'll just blow your fillings out. So your regulator regulates it down to about 10 bar, depends on the first stage, and then it puts that into the hose, and then the mouthpiece delivers the gas that you need whenever you inhale. But yeah, your regulator If someone talks about your regs, they're typically talking about the entire thing, but yeah, it's your breathing apparatus. A reverse profile is a specific dive profile that I was talking about a little bit earlier, where the second dive of the day is deeper than the first. So now, there isn't strong evidence, if any, that a reverse profile is detrimental, but for many years, training agencies have taught students to avoid reverse profiles and always start the day with the deepest dive and then go shallower from that. Now, the American Academy of Underwater Sciences workshop on reverse dive profiles actually concluded there was no evidence to support prohibiting reverse dive profiles. So whilst a lot of divers have been taught to avoid them, actually there doesn't seem to be a lot of evidence supporting that. But yeah, if someone's talking about a reverse profile, they're talking about where you do a shallow dive first and then the second dive of the day is deeper. A reverse squeeze. We're starting with reverse squeeze because R comes before S in the alphabet. But a reverse squeeze is an unfortunate problem that can occur usually if you're diving when you're congested, if you've got a cold or something, and it blocks a gas pocket in your sinuses or some airspace during the dive. As you ascend towards the end of the dive and that blocked gas pocket tries to expand, it can't go anywhere because it's blocked, so it can stretch the tissue itself, which can be very painful. The best thing to do is to stay at depth, at a comfortable depth where it doesn't hurt anymore. Just let that gas escape slowly. It will eventually find its way free, but if you come up too quickly, it's going to hurt yourself. That's why we try and end the dive with plenty of gas left in our cylinder to give ourselves as much time as possible for such a problem to alleviate itself. If you go down to like the lowest amount on your pressure gauge and then you encounter that problem, you're really going to hurt yourself. As you ascend, any airspace that we just talked about will expand in volume, which makes you more and more buoyant, especially when it's your BCD or your Drysuit, because that's a larger volume of gas. So if you added any air to your BCD or Drysuit at depth, that air inside is going to expand and make you more and more buoyant as you ascend. And the faster you go up, the worse it gets. So as you ascend, you need to be ready to vent any expanding gas. Otherwise, you get caught in what we call a runaway ascent, where you basically just shoot up to the surface because you become a little bit more buoyant. It expands, you become more buoyant, it expands further, and it just gets faster and faster. So yeah, always nice and slowly ascend at the end of every dive, and always have your hand on a deflate so that you can vent any expanding gas. The reason why you can't just shoot up to the surface is that dissolved gas in your tissues. If you ascend too quickly, then they can expand and also form bubbles in your body, which you shouldn't really have bubbles in your tissues because they can block blood vessels and whatnot. So to prevent this, divers stop ascending at certain depths for a certain amount of time to allow that gas to escape before it forms a physical bubble. That pause is called a stop. We have safety stops, which all divers tend to do at the end of every single dive, just 3 minutes at 5 meters. And we have Deco stops as well that we only do on specific dives. But if someone's just hanging at a certain depth, then we call that a stop. A sausage usually refers to your DSMB or your delayed surface marker buoy. They're long and they're cylindrical, so we call them sausages sometimes. Some divers call buoys blobs because they used to be just round and, well, blob shaped, so that kind of makes sense. We're not great at naming things, we call it as it is. But a DSMB or a safety sausage is a tall and thin inflatable so that when it's on the surface it can stand really tall in the water to be seen above the waves from a greater distance. If it's small and round, it's not going to stick out very high, whereas if it's something like this and it's a good like 1, 2, sometimes even 3 meters tall, it makes it really obvious so that boats can see where you are. Your second stage is this part of the regulator. It's the part of the regulator that goes in your mouth. If it's got a mouthpiece on it, it's probably going to be a second stage. The first stage, the metal bit, connects to your cylinder, and then you have 2 hoses that connect a pair of second stages to breathe from. The exact number can vary depending on your regulator setup, but the most standard single cylinder setup is going to have 2 hoses, each with a second stage on the end. The yellow one, we often call that an octo or an octopus. Some call it an alternate, and the black or whatever color one, the one that you actually breathe from yourself, we typically call that your primary or your primary second stage. A semi-dry is basically a really good wetsuit for diving in colder waters. A wetsuit works by letting a small amount of water in against your skin, but air is a better insulator, so a semi-dry will actually keep you dry with better seals for the first portion of the dive. You actually stay dry inside of it, and when water does eventually find its way in, it's a wetsuit, so it acts like a wetsuit, so it still keeps you warm. It's kind of the best of both worlds. It's where if you don't want the training and the expense of a dry suit, or if you don't want to risk damaging your dry suit and risk a flooding incident, so if you're diving around like sharp edges on a shipwreck, then a semi-dry can help with that, because even if it does get punctured, it's going to act as a wetsuit, so it's still going to keep you warm. Shore-based is the opposite of a liveaboard, really. If you're looking at scuba diving holidays and you see something labelled as shore-based, then you'll stay in a regular hotel, and then you'll have a dive package where you'll go out each morning on a boat or walking in from the shore, typically 2 or 3 dives each day, depending on the dive package, and then you come back in the afternoon to chill out on dry land, have some drinks and have some food. Side mount refers to where you mount your cylinders. We have back mount, we have chest mount, which is pretty rare nowadays, and we have side mount. Most scuba divers mount their cylinders on their back in like a single or a twin fashion, so that's back mounted singles or back mounted twins, but for tight spaces like caves and shipwrecks, mounting your cylinders down the side of your body in the side mount configuration can make you more streamlined in the water, and the benefit of side mount is that each cylinder is clipped on and you can actually unclip them in the water to make you much more like flexible to fit through smaller gaps. Skip breathing is a breathing pattern to try and extend your bottom time by holding your breath for a few seconds before exhaling. This unfortunately does more harm than it does good, as it can basically, whenever you're holding your breath, you can increase your CO2 levels in your bloodstream, which is what tells your brain that you need to breathe more, so you feel a bit more out of breath. It kind of makes sense to like take a breath, hold it for a few seconds, and then exhale. As long as you're not changing depth, you're not going to have a lung overexpansion injury. However, the best way to make your gas last longer is just to breathe naturally. Some divers carry slates with them on a dive, which you can either write on underwater to write messages to one another. You can write notes for when you get back to the surface if you're taking a survey, or you can write notes before the dive so that you can refer to them later when you're underwater. Something like compass navigation degrees. If you know you need to get from one point to another and that's the angle or the degree that you need to take, then yeah, you can write that down so you can refer to it later, so you don't have to remember it whilst you're in the water. They're typically white plastic cards. They come in a range of sizes and they have a pencil attached. Not a regular wooden pencil though, because the wood tends to swell and then split. You'll get one good dive out of it, and then for dive 2 it's just falling apart. We have fancy underwater pencils now. A Spearo is someone who spearfishes, basically. The best origin that I could find was that it was coined by a South African diver named Gene Franken to describe his spearfishing buddies, but that's according to one of Gene's students. But yeah, a Spearo is basically someone who spearfishes. Back to squeeze. A squeeze refers to when an airspace reduces in volume as you descend, and that reduction can cause discomfort depending on where it is. When we talk about squeezes or someone experienced a squeeze, we're usually talking about a mask squeeze. That's the most common, where your mask, the air inside reduces in volume, so the mask actually sucks into your face, and it can actually be very painful. All you have to do to combat that is just breathe out through your nose, because your nose is covered up by the mask itself, so any gas that you exhale through your nose is going to equalize that. And sometimes we have suit squeezes, usually in dry suits, but you can get it in semi-dries as well, because they do keep that airspace, where it basically feels like you're being vacuum packed inside of your suit. But yeah, anywhere where an airspace is reducing in volume and it's like pinching you, we call that a squeeze. We don't see physical tables as much as we used to, thanks to diving computers, but dive tables are a way to plan a dive to certain depths and like what times to be able to stay safe. They're pretty simple, but they can be a little bit rigid, especially with like multi-level diving. It takes a lot of working out, whereas your dive computer just does it all on the fly. But yeah, if someone's talking about their tables, yeah, they're probably talking about their diving tables like this. Scuba diving can be very demanding, and if you keep adding more and more new things, like a new BCD and a new mask and new fins, and you're diving in poor visibility and you're diving in current and you've never experienced current before, then you're just going to make it just harder and harder for yourself, which often leads to accidents and people getting hurt. If you try to add too much all at once, we call that task loading. Take it easy. Try and add one new thing at a time. When you're comfortable with that, then you can add the next thing so that you're not overwhelming yourself. So if you've got a new BCD, just get used to the BCD and then get your new regulators or whatever it is. If you've never experienced poor visibility before, make sure you're wearing everything that you're used to wearing so that you don't have to worry about a new BCD as well as poor visibility. It just one thing at a time so you're not task loading. Technical diving or tech diving is kind of a vague term that describes basically more advanced scuba diving. Each diver and agency will determine tech diving as something slightly different, but it's usually diving beyond a certain depth or for an extended period of time. If you're diving mixed gases and you're changing gases underwater, if you're diving in overhead environments as well, that's usually what they're talking about when it comes to tech diving. A tech diver is simply someone that has spent more time learning about how to explore further underwater safely. They've spent a bit more time learning about the biology, the physics and the chemistry of it all, and yeah, just how to spend more time underwater safely. We get a few climbs whilst scuba diving, but a thermocline is where the water temperature suddenly changes at a certain depth. You'll feel it all of a sudden. The water temperature will drop a degree or two in like half a meter, and you will notice those 2 degrees. It's much nicer on the way back up because you're just swimming into a warm bath. But yeah, that's a thermocline where there's a sudden change in temperature. A halocline is another cline that we sometimes come across, where the salinity of the water suddenly changes from salt water to fresh water, and you can see a thin like shimmer in the water until you disturb it. But yeah, a cline is usually some kind of sudden change. If it's a thermocline, it's temperature. If it's halocline, it's the salinity. Any diver can call off or end the dive for any reason, and the hand signal to ascend and end the dive is a thumbs up because it points in the direction that you want to go. So if a diver thumbs a dive, they're thumbing the dive thumbs up, and they want to end the dive. They should then say why, hopefully because they're cold or whatever, they're low on gas. But yeah, if someone says thumbs up to you on a dive, it means they're ascend. And if someone says someone thumbed a dive, it means that they ended the dive for whatever reason. Trim in scuba diving usually means your body position in the water and how like neat and tidy your equipment is. Ideally, we want to be as horizontal and streamlined as possible in the water. You use less energy if your equipment is streamlined and you're horizontal, because if you're like diving diagonally, you're going to be hitting a lot of that water, whereas if you're horizontal, you're only hitting a small amount, and you use less energy. The backwash from your fins is less likely to stir up the sediment, and your whole body is at the same pressure for decompression as well, so it's better to stay horizontal. But yeah, if someone's talking about you've got bad trim or something, it just means you're not horizontal in the water, or your equipment's a bit all over the place. Our lead weights are typically strapped to a weight belt, or they're put in weight pockets in our BCDs, but some BCDs have trim weight pockets, usually high up, like behind your shoulder blades, to move some of that lead a little bit higher up your body to stay in a horizontal position. Most divers find that their shoulders are a bit upright, so putting a bit of lead a bit higher up your back can help level you out to stay in that horizontal position. Some divers find that if all of their lead is around their waist, then they're always in that heads up position, so you do get that. On the flip side, you can have ankle weights as well to help keep your feet down. It can be useful for some divers to move some of that lead up to their shoulders, but not too much lead. It's usually 1 or 2 kilos, because it's hard, well, it's nearly impossible to ditch it if you need to drop the lead. So you don't put all of your lead in trim, you just put a small amount. If you remember back to when I said that Nitrox increases bottom time, but it sacrifices depth, that's because oxygen is toxic at depth. Trimix adds helium as well. So you've got Nitrox, which adds oxygen. Trimix adds oxygen and helium, which is an inert gas that reduces both nitrogen and oxygen. There's lots of different gas mixes, so sometimes you're only adding helium to basically allow you to dive deeper. You do need training to use it though, because if you breathe certain trimix mixes at the wrong depths, there may not be enough oxygen, which is obviously a bad thing. That's why tech diving is such an aspiration for many divers. But yeah, trimix, you're adding helium to the mix so that you can get down deeper. Most dives tend to end where they're started, either because your dive boat is anchored at a certain point, or there's a convenient entry and exit point. Because of that, when a diver reaches a certain gas pressure, they stop and they turn back. There are lots of reasons to turn a dive, and it's best to end the dive as near as possible to the exit point to basically avoid a long surface swim. But yeah, if a diver gets to a certain gas pressure, they'll stop, tell their buddy they're going to turn the dive. There are lots of different hand signals, and I tend to do that. And yeah, that's just turning the dive. To Twins. I've talked about twins when I was talking about manifolds, but twins are just a pair of back-mounted cylinders. It doubles your air supply and adds a bit of extra redundancy. If something should fail with one first stage or second stage, then you have a completely separate regulator and cylinder to rely on. And if two divers are breathing from your twins, then it reduces the strain on a single first stage because there are two, one for each diver. If two divers need to breathe from a single first stage, that's going to double the workflow, and usually if someone's breathing from an octo, it's because something bad's just happened, so they're going to be breathing pretty heavily. So you're increasing the workload, and in certain water temperatures it's actually recommended that you dive with two first stages anyway, either with a Y valve or with twin cylinders. But yeah, it just adds the redundancy, and twins are just two cylinders bolted together. The vis, or visibility, on a dive is basically how far you can see. Things like algae and sediment that's been stirred up into the water can reduce the visibility, which makes it a bit harder to see what's at a distance. It can be hard to measure visibility precisely unless you spend time with like a tape measure and swim it away from an object until you can't see it. But you'll often hear about like good or bad vis, and it's basically just a guesstimated distance at how far you can see underwater and recognize something on a dive. But yeah, that's your vis. A wall dive is a dive where you swim along a vertical reef on like a drop off, basically. Instead of the reef and the fish being all below you and you swim over the top of it, wall dives are good because they're typically very deep waters where you get the best of both worlds. You get all of the reef for all of the small colourful things, and on the other side you get the deep water that brings the larger species that don't like shallow waters. But yeah, a wall dive, you of course need good buoyancy so that you don't descend beyond your maximum depth, but yeah, they're a good dive for like the best of both worlds. Wetnotes are similar to slates, but they're typically made from thin plastic pages bound into like a notebook. They're not as easy to write on if you're writing lots of information, but you do get a lot more space, and because you've got multiple pages, you can have like stock questions and answers to pass to one another. But yeah, if someone's talking about Wetnotes, it's like an underwater notebook. A whip refers to the hose that fills cylinders, really. High pressure hoses, if they fail, they whip around quite dangerously, so we call them whips. Again, we're not great with our namings, but it's pretty rare to actually see unless you work filling cylinders, or you'd like, for whatever reason, take an axe to your SPG hose to actually see a diving hose properly whip. But yeah, if someone talks about a whip, it is usually to fill up a cylinder. A wing is a style of BCD where the bladder is all behind you, typically in a donut-shaped ring that goes around your cylinder. They do hold you in a real good position in the water, and they'll never squeeze you when they're fully inflated because it's all behind you, unlike a jacket or a hybrid BCD. But some divers don't like the way that they put you face down in the water when fully inflated, but as long as you're conscious, you just lean back a bit and you can stay upright. But yeah, if someone's talking about a wing, it's where the bladder is all behind you. Now that was a lot, but I promise there are more scuba diving terms that I didn't think of. If you know of any I missed, then pop them down in the comments below, and hopefully now you'll have a vague idea of what somebody is talking about without needing to Google every other word to understand what they're talking about. Remember to check out the website for our magazine. Most of what we do goes into the magazine itself, but we do publish some bits on the website, and you can subscribe to the magazine over there on the website, scubadivermag.com. For a free subscription though, you can subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.